This video is brought to you by my two books, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist and The Blues Guitar Bible. Want to learn about modes, harmony, scales, chord substitution and keys? Or maybe you're interested in supercharging your blues guitar rhythm and lead chops. Whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you will be hitting the fast lane to progress with either of these works. Both feature video demonstrations and tutorials, loads of tabs and jam tracks to play along with, and I promise you, everything is explained in crystal clear plain English. Check out the links in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. You may recall that a few weeks ago one of the top 5 Tuesday videos was about questions that I get asked on a regular basis. And the topic that we're going to discuss today was almost one of the questions on that list, but I thought it deserved a little bit more attention and to go into a bit more depth, so I thought I'd do a standalone video on it. And as you've already gathered from the title and the thumbnail, what we're going to be talking about is what it's like playing the guitar for a living. Some hints and tips that I've learned through experience, and just a few sort of pointers basically if you're considering taking the plunge and turning professional, as we used to say. Back in 1991, I was playing in a sort of weekend, we call them club band outfit in this part of the world, where you're not playing like in the corner of a pub, kind of next to the dartboard and the pool table. You're actually on a stage with a lighting rig, a backdrop, and a big PA system and everything, playing in like the social clubs and the working men's clubs of this part of the world, the notorious northern club circuit. I was doing that on a weekend, and it wasn't bad money. Occasionally, it was a bit sort of fits and starts, though. It was like you'd be kind of rolling in cash one month, and then the next month it was a bit thin pickings or slim pickings. So that didn't matter because I had a day job. My day job was as a lab technician working for a company that made bits and pieces for consumer goods. Basically, if you had a microwave oven in the late 80s or early 90s, it probably had some of our parts in it. And, same could be said for a VCR or, various other consumer electronics. We made bits that went into those. A company called Tabucchi. Anyway, I worked in the sort of quality assurance lab for that company, and then in, I think it was June 1991, there were a bunch of layoffs, and that included me. So I stuck an ad in the local paper, I think it was the Evening Gazette in Middlesbrough, local daily paper, and advertising my services as a guitar teacher. I didn't know the first thing about teaching the guitar, but I reckon on the fact, well, I've got to give it a go, and I cringe when I think about some of the students' experiences with me back then, but somehow or other I managed to get me act together and earn a living at it. And got better as I went along, learned on the job, built the plane as I was flying it, to coin a phrase. So that's how I started in the middle of 1991. And what I'm going to do is basically break this video down into 3 sections. We're going to talk about what it's like to teach the guitar. We're going to talk about what it's like to play professionally. And also we're going to talk about, just some of the things that you need to be aware of when you're running any kind of small business, because that's what you're doing when you become a self-employed musician. You are a business owner. So let's get started with how I started, really, which was playing on the club circuit, playing professionally in functions bands, is I guess what you'd probably call them in other parts of the world. So this is what you need to know about that side of the business.
Playing professionally.
Right, so the first thing to do is don't be precious about your musical tastes, okay? You may absolutely loathe and despise some irritating earworm of a pop thing that's kind of riding high in the top 40 at that particular time. There were certain songs that I cringe at the thought of, I actually played on that, when we used to cover it. But, that's what you've got to do. You're not doing this as a hobby anymore. You've got to be, you've got to show up with a professional attitude and think, well, okay, this wouldn't be my choice, but, I'm getting paid to entertain people. And if this is what they want to hear, then, I'm receiving money in return for it, so I'm going to play it. And just, park my own musical likes and dislikes, leave those in the dressing room, basically. The other thing is, and most of these things are fairly obvious, they shouldn't need saying, but unfortunately, my experience of working with certain musicians, these things do need saying. Learn your parts, okay? The practice room is not where you learn the song. You learn the song at home. You burn the midnight oil if necessary. You nail that tricky guitar lick, or you come up with a way where you can kind of get past some tricky part. Maybe you might have to enlist the help of one of your band colleagues who can say, yeah, can you handle that harmony part there, or something like that. Just basically get so that when you turn up at the practice room, you know what you're going to play, and the drummer counts it off, and you can just launch into the song. So you're not having to look over at what the bass player's doing, which fret is he at, so you can get some kind of rough idea of what chord needs to be played. Learn your parts, turn up knowing what you need to play. Be punctual. You don't want to be the guy that everybody's kind of stood around looking at their wristwatch saying, where is he? Because the moment you show up, everybody's already in a bad mood with you. When you do that, it's unprofessional. Turn up early. Be 5 minutes early. Be the guy who can always be relied upon to be there. I don't drive, okay, but I could always manage to do it. I would always make sure that I was where I needed to be when I needed to be there. And if somebody without, a driving license can manage that well, there's no excuse for anyone else to be turning up 15, 20 minutes late, as some people that I've worked with have been wont to do on occasions. Pull your weight, there's gear to be loaded in and out of the practice room or in and out of the venue, okay? And most of these clubs that I'm talking about tend to be, whoever the architect that designs them, and they all seem to follow a similar layout. The architect that seems to design them has a grudge against musicians because the concert room is always like on the third floor or something like that, and it's a rickety old fire escape to get the gear in and out, humping bass bins and stuff up, kind of narrow staircases and stuff. Pull your weight. Don't be the guy who turns up, loads his own gear out of the van, and then just sets up and starts, noodling while everybody else is humping their gear. Kind of pitch in. It's a band effort. It's a team effort. You don't set up your gear until everybody's stuff is loaded in. And the same goes for the load out as well. Make sure that you're a team player on that score. And the other thing to remember is the audience is the final judge. I've been in bands with people who insist that that song that they picked stays in the set because they own the lighting rig, or, the van's insurance is in their name, or, they own some part, they either have ownership or control of some vital part of the band's infrastructure, and that gives them a casting vote on whether a song remains in the set. The audience is the final judge. If a song, no matter how much you love it, no matter how much, when you are kind of sitting down in a band meeting and discussing, oh yeah, this will be a great one, this will go down really well, I used to play this in a band years ago, and the audiences always love it. None of that matters if the audiences you're playing it to start kind of gossiping while you're playing and wandering off to the bar and going into the foyer to play on the slot machines, okay? If a song is having that effect, get rid of it and replace it with something else. So those are just a few tips from what I've learned playing professionally. I'm sure you will, seasoned gigging maestros out there will have other things that I've probably missed, so leave those in the comments. Now on to the other side of my revenue stream, the one that became increasingly important throughout the 90s, ultimately to the point where I decided to do this full time, teaching the guitar.
Teaching professionally.
There was once a famous cover of some music fanzine or something which had like 3 chord boxes on it, and it said, there's a chord, here's another one, and here's another, now go and form a band, you know, the kind of chord boxes. And whilst that is an admirable attitude, it's a way of kind of making music feel accessible and democratising, you know, the art of being a musician. It is sort of symptomatic of what many people seem to miss, which is the strumming. Okay, I get students coming to me all the time who've learned a few chords from somebody that they know, or increasingly these days from the internet. And you know, if it's somebody that's like a friend of theirs that's shown them how to play a few chords, and look, and you can play these great songs with these chords. You know, the one thing that's always lacking is how to play the rhythm, because the rhythm for most experienced guitarists, the strumming pattern, how you deal with, assuming you're a right-handed guitarist, how you deal with the right hand, that is so baked in and second nature and instinctive that it barely registers as something that you need to give a thought to. But it is. If everyone could get in a time machine, a TARDIS or something, and go back and visit their early days as a guitar player, you would kind of quickly find out that yes, you do have to concentrate on a downstroke followed by an upstroke, and keeping that in time with the pulse of the music and counting it and everything. Okay, that is one of the, when I get people who are, you know, almost beginners, they're not quite intermediate, but they're not quite, you know, kind of raw beginners. They know a few chords, and you know, they've started putting some songs together, but it never quite sounds right, and they come to me to find out why. It is inevitably a problem, a bad habit that they've picked up through not concentrating on the rhythmic side of things. So if you're going to be teaching the guitar, don't assume that people are going to know how to strum. Don't assume that people are going to know you know, any of the basics that feel to an experienced musician like you so obvious that they need no explanation. Make sure that you cover that. You know, don't talk down to people. Don't tell somebody who can already play, you know, kind of half a dozen songs and strum them really well. Don't kind of, you know, waste their time by telling them going over basics that they already know. But check first that they already know it, is what I'm saying. Tailor the lesson content to the student. There is, and I'm not going to name any names, but there is one of my competitors in this area where I've had ex-students of his coming to me because they wanted to learn Basket Case by Green Day, or, you know, Smells Like Teen Spirit, or something like that, and you know, he's bombarding them with dominant 13 flat 9 chords and the scales that you need to play over the top of them, you know, because that is just, you know, you'll benefit from, you'll thank me in the long run, kind of thing. You know, what I find is, well, my own journey on the guitar was I grew up when the guitar was just a way to play 50s rock and roll. 50s rock and roll was massive in the 70s when I was a kid. You know, Shawaddy Waddy, the Darts, Grease, Happy Days, all that kind of stuff was massive in popular culture, and that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to learn 3 chords so I could play some Chuck Berry songs. And then I gradually started pulling at the thread, and you know, and I find that with a lot of students that happens the same. But don't force feed it, you know. Don't force feed them, you know, what you think is a musical diet of knowledge that will be good for them until they express some interest in it or curiosity. You know, just kind of deal with what they want to deal with, and I'll guarantee that when they get to the place where they wanted to get to in terms of being able to play what they want to play, there'll be something else that's just that little bit over the horizon. And if you've been accommodating for them as a teacher up to that point, then they'll stick with you and they'll show an interest in following that path. And don't teach theory for the sake of theory. Music theory, I believe, is you only really remember any knowledge, whether it's music theory or anything else, when it becomes a solution to a problem. So, you know, when a player is, you know, confused about which fret to move this bar chord shape to, then you can show them all about the chromatic scale. Confused about which chords go together, well, then you can talk to them about, diatonic chords within a key and so on. So when it becomes something that they need to know, they will make use of it and remember it, and they will gradually build up the knowledge that way. And finally, on this, set a good example, right? Don't send a student away with an exercise or a solo or something to practice, and they come back the next week and they're better than you are at it. Okay, you've got to be, kind of on point and just be able to say, yeah, that's really good, and this is how you could make it better. Watch me, learn how I'm doing it. See what you're doing wrong there. Okay, try and tweak it a little bit like this. Know your stuff so that you don't embarrass yourself in front of a student, basically. So that is, those are again just a few tips on teaching the guitar that I've come across over the years and learned through experience. Again, I'm sure there are people out there who can make suggestions for things that I've missed. Please leave those in the comments. So finally, let's move on to the aspect of what it's like to be a professional, to be a small business owner, as a kind of self-employed musician.
Running the business.
You have to be disciplined, okay? If there is a job that needs doing, then you have to do it. Okay, if you have to get something done by a certain time, get it done by that time. Don't sit there thinking, well, I'll just check out this YouTube video, or I'll just kind of check my social medias or whatever. No, get the work done. Do what you need to do. It might be learning a solo, it might be tabbing something out, it might be, creating a backing track, it might be whatever is on your agenda for that day. Set a day, use a day planner. I do. I have my day planned out from the moment I enter this room at about 7:30 every morning till the moment I leave it, usually gone 8 p.m. on an evening. And be disciplined with your allocation of time. Keep on top of your admin. Okay, massively important. Things like keeping your accounts up to date, responding to emails. Okay, if somebody emails me, I have, sometimes I don't always live up to this, but I do try to get back to them within 24 hours, or if I can't, then the first line of my reply to them will be apologies for the delay, and kind of just don't just let that email from possibly a potential customer sit there in your inbox and think, I'll deal with that later, because it always kind of gets missed. That's how you miss things. I've just before I started shooting this video, I've just kind of gone through my inbox and replied to who I needed to reply to and all that sort of stuff, and I will guarantee that by this time tomorrow there will be 50, 60, 70 emails that I need to wade through as well. Some of them will be just people sending me pictures of guitars for the Friday live stream. Some will be just the usual sort of dross that enters your inbox that you can just kind of scroll past and ignore, but you've got to go through them all. Keep on top of your admin accounts, emails. Every year, once a year, we have that lovely thing where we have to fill in a tax return. You want all of the necessary figures to hand for when you do that. Don't be scared of long hours. I often say to people, I wouldn't work these hours for anyone else. It's not unusual for me to put in 70 hours a week in here, but I love what I'm doing and I wouldn't trade it. As I often say, it's better than working for a living. Figure out different ways of, if you're running a business, people need to know about you. Figure out different ways of publicising your business. Going back to the 1990s, I was getting flyers printed up and I was walking around the local towns in this area just stuffing flyers under car windscreens and kind of going into local kind of news agents and kind of corner shops and stuff like that and asking if they'd mind putting it up for me, all of that kind of stuff. Then in, like when was it, probably the early, I think it was in 2000, the millennium, I heard about, well, I knew about, there was this thing called the World Wide Web, but you needed a computer for that, so I bought a computer and I taught myself, a little bit of basic web design. I got HTML for Dummies from the local bookshop and built myself a basic website and put that up, and, tried various social medias over the time. Facebook didn't work for me. It didn't generate any promising leads, neither did Twitter. So then, I tried YouTube, and that took a long time to come to fruition, but it did. And that's where, most of my inquiries from new students comes from these days. So, when you try something and it doesn't work, try something else. When you try that and it doesn't work, try something else. There will be the magic bullet that gets your name out there and gets people either picking up the phone or sending you an email asking if you could be of service to them. And you got to be a fast learner as well, as I hinted there. I didn't know how to switch a computer on in 1999, but by a year later I'd figured out, I'd become IT literate, and I'd built a website. Pretty rubbish one by today's standards, but it was there, it was my presence. And the same goes for keeping accounts. And what I'm going to be doing immediately, I turn this I press stop on this recording. I've had to learn how to do video editing. I've had to learn how to do audio mixing. And why I'm doing a bunch of videos on that at the moment on a Wednesday. All of these things are, I've had tips and tricks and shown to me by others, either in person. Thank you, Steve Hoggett. You know who you are. But, also from YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. Just, again, it's going back to that thing of when a piece of knowledge solves a problem for you, you remember it. And that's how I've accumulated, pretty much everything I know about anything, I suppose. So there you go. There are just a few observations and tips and reflections on what it's like playing guitar for a living. If you have any of your own that you've garnered upon your musical journey, then please leave them in the comments below. But that is it for today, folks. I get the feeling this is probably a bit of a longer video than I normally put out, so apologies for that, but I just wanted to get all this off my chest. And if you've enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. And of course, don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. We drink beer, we look at pictures of guitars, we chat. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.